Because I don't want to hear myself talk so much, I'm going to ask each of you to kind of give our viewers a brief introduction. So Drew, if you want to start us off.
Sure, yeah. I'm Drew. I'm the co-director and producer of Fireboys. I'm based in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you.
I'm Jeff. I'm based in Oberlin, Ohio, so just to the west of here, about an hour. And I'm a filmmaker and a professor at Oberlin College, and I'm one of the producers of the film.
Hi, I'm Jakob Hochendoner, co-director, producer, director of photography on Fireboys. We were based in Cleveland until last year, recently moved to Dallas, Texas.
All right, terrific. Now, obviously we have a lot of talent up here on the, excluding me, we have a lot of talent on the stage here. How did you three come together to work on this project? So, Drew.
Well, just to go way back, the reason we are here is because Jeff was our documentary professor at Oberlin College, and Jeff randomly assigned Jake and I about 10 years ago now as documentary partners to make our very first documentary, and here we are. So really, it's all about Jeff.
It's Jeff's fault.
Yeah, Jeff's fault.
Well, I was going to say, when I was driving in, I was thinking, you know, the best decision that I've made about this film was recognizing that these two were really good filmmakers way back, because they were in this class, and then they made some films together working for me with this other organization, and from that came this film. So I think I sort of feel like my contribution here was in sort of getting them into this. So,
well, it's a testament to the differences you've made in people's lives to help us bring not only these filmmakers to where they are today, but also to this story to all of us. So, Jake, how did the story come to you?
So, you know, right after college, Drew and I were working with Jeff and his organization Storylens as the first fellows in that program and making documentary films. Like, we made 5 shorts that year, and one of the shorts was about mass incarceration. Right about the same time, we ended up working in a prison, and so we kind of were learning about these issues around mass incarceration while making short films and like having some success there and feeling like, you know, we want to make a feature film. And doing research into criminal justice news, we learned that incarcerated firefighters were being used in California to fight the wildfires, getting paid $1 to $2 an hour, working 24-hour shifts right alongside, you know, the Cal Fire crews. And so that was a very interesting story, and we kind of started to dig a little bit deeper and found out that one of those fire camps these guys work at are staffed entirely by juveniles. And so that was intriguing and opened up a lot of questions. It allowed us to open up and ask a lot of questions around the things we were seeing while working in the prisons. And so from there, we started the process of getting access to visit the camp, and then the film kind of launched from there.
Well, and that's one of the things that I really wondered as I was watching the film, Drew, is getting access. I'm sure everything's a challenge, but was that a big challenge, is getting access to this program?
When we first got access, we pitched the film as a short, because like Jake said, that was kind of what we had been doing at the time. We were able to send them a short that we had made through Storylens called 100 Second Chances, about a program that helps to combat recidivism in Cleveland. And I think based on that, they were like, sure, come for a couple days, you know, tell our story. Little did they know we'd be bothering them for 5 years. So I think had they known that, they may not have given us that initial access. But for us, it was really about getting in the door and building that relationship over such a long period of time. And, you know, to the prison's credit, to CDCR's credit, they did, you know, allow us to make the film. I think they're really proud of the program. And so that's a unique reason for them to let us in that probably is not normally the case. But for us, I mean, the really biggest challenge was building the trust with the youth, and that was the most important thing. And so that's really what we poured our energy in.
Well, and that was, you answered a number of my questions here, is A, time frame. So was that actually filming for 5 years, or was that the entire process?
Well, the big secret of the film is that it was filmed out of order in 2 sections. Our first section was Chewy's section, and it was filmed mostly in 2015, 2016. Then at that point, the prison said, great, you filmed enough, bye. And we spent basically 2 years trying to get back in, and that's something that Jake did a ton of work on, if you want to speak to that. But yeah.
Yeah, we had been connected with a few of the guys that had left camp and were out in the world, and one of them became a firefighter and was doing a lot of speaking engagements and mentoring for other youth that were coming out of the system. And we kind of met him through other guys, and he introduced us to the new director of juvenile justice in California. And we kind of re-pitched him the story and said, you know, here's what we have, here's what we need, and here's how this story can actually fully encapsulate this experience. And he went for it and said, yeah, and gave us full access. We sent him our schedule, we rolled up, not knowing who we were gonna meet that was gonna be that guy that went through the system and went from prison to fire camp and saw that transformation happen. And we just, you know, there were 2 guys that stood out. One of them got transferred, and that was Alex, and that's who became our, you know, our our story. You know, it was just happenstance.
Can I just add something?
Please.
In the producing role, I've sort of been around and outside this process, watching them and the rest of the team try and make this happen. And Jake's account is glossing over all kinds of really difficult moments when we had to do a lot of things to get back in, where people were saying, well, you can't do this, you can't do this, because the system is not set up to allow people in. It's set up to say no. And I've never been part of a major film project that didn't feel like it was dead at least once. And there were times when I remember thinking, is this going to happen or not, just because of that. So these guys did an amazing job to get in.
So during those periods of, I will call despair or doubt, were you acting cheerleader? We've got producers, directors, and I know that those are generic terms. What is your role, and specifically when it came to those times?
I guess I'd say cheerleader loosely, since I don't really cheer. I was more of a quiet whisperer leader, but
A brooding cheerleader, I would
brooding
say.
cheerleader. I thought about it a lot. I wrestled about it a lot. But we were on the phone a lot. We had a lot of calls. They were in California, and I was in Oberlin, just talking about how to deal with this next problem, and getting funding for it was really important. And it was an important film from my point of view from the beginning when I saw kind of what was happening, and but the film, but also what they were doing. So yeah.
Well, it has to be. I mean, it has to be rewarding for all, but especially for you. So, when I watch the movie, my first thing is challenges, and the more I talk to filmmakers, the more I learn about the immense challenges that is making film. My big question is, what is it like making a film in a forest fire?
It's intense. It's intense. That was definitely, for me personally, the biggest challenge. I mean, we trained for months just to be ready to go out there and keep up with these guys because, we couldn't be like, bye, have a great hike. In order to really get this story, we had to be with them every step of the way. So, that started with fire training. Julie Hutchinson, who's the captain that you see doing the training in the film, she actually took time outside of her schedule to train Jake and I to be able to go in. So we had to do basically a compressed version of the full training crew.
And she's making this sound like it's you have to see the film. It is intense, doesn't even encapsulate this training process.
It's intense, it's intense. And you can't really be prepared for that feeling of being in a car and driving behind a dozer, which is literally creating road up a mountain, driving into a wildfire area, not knowing where you're going to show up, not knowing how far you're going to hike. And I think for me, that actually added this extra layer of intimacy and understanding with these guys. They had to be ready 24 hours a day to go into the harshest conditions. And for us, we did it a couple weeks at a time. But also, I have to be honest, like Jake was carrying my tripod sometimes. It was intense, and it brought us closer to them, I think, and because we went through something hard together.
And isn't that a part of the building of trust? Isn't that, being in that situation right alongside?
Yeah, we trained with them. They'd go on training hikes, and we would attend that with them. We kind of placed ourselves in very much in their lives and asked for permission to participate in what they were going through. And then, when you see them in their dorms and things are calm, or them in these transitions and institutions, we're very present. We're very much a part of that backdrop that is the prison, or is the sort of structure of the institution. But when we get out in the fire lines, we go out on their bus, we're asking permission, we're earning their trust. We're constantly checking in about those things because they don't have agency, right? They didn't get to consent to be in the film. The prison consented for them. We just got permission to film on site. So we have to take our extra measures to make sure that we're honoring them and their experience by continuously checking in those ways and sharing things. So I think it's about that shared experience, and that's how you build trust, right? We shared our work. We came in there, we showed our film. We came back the next year, showed them our trailer that we made for the film. That got buy-in, and that allowed them to see themselves how we were portraying that story, and that was huge in building that trust as filmmaker and participant in film. Now, in terms of just letting us kind of hang out with them together, we would kind of come in, give them space, come in, give them space, but constantly checking in, and then focusing on the lives of a few guys, but also opening up conversation to the whole group. When they saw that, they collectively allowed us to have trust within the group. And then we're going on hikes with them. Then we're going on their fire line, and they're seeing us right there with them. Now we're earning our trust with them, and they're allowing us to have space and share that space. And then, as Drew said, we go through something challenging. We go through a hike. We're sweaty. We're tired. And they're like, yeah, props, you're doing it too. We're out here together. And so that's how we get that intimacy with their personal lives. You have to earn it on multiple levels before they let you in to their families.
And it's so evident. You have to, when you're watching the film, you can see how these guys who have created this tough exterior, how that breaks down and how you get to see behind that, which is a testament to all those efforts you put forth to peel away those layers. So very well done. So Drew, when you're doing the filming, obviously at some point in time you're gonna pull some heroes, you're gonna pull some characters. At what point in time did those specific characters become evident?
We were very lucky because we met Chuy Hernandez maybe on our second day of filming. And, we met him, we did an initial interview with him because when we got to camp, the captains were like, this guy's really special. And that was kind of a helpful hint. And then he came in and we talked for like an hour and a half and really clicked. And we learned how much he loved firefighting and also that he was going to be released in like 6 months and his dream was to become a firefighter. And for us, that just crystallized so much of the story that we wanted to tell. So we knew right away that he was our guy kind of to tell that story, to say what happens after. How are these guys prepared? How are they set up for success? How are they supported or not? And like Jake said, on the other side, because we shot it out of order, we knew that it was so important to in order to really understand Chuy's story, we needed to really see that transformation that happens when you see a guy who's in a lockdown facility in an isolated cell get transferred to camp and transform into a firefighter and the hard work that goes into that. And it's also interesting when people hear about the story, often they think the guys are just kind of thrown out on the line. And they're trained and it's taken very seriously. And I think that was also important for us to show that process. And also just what it takes to overcome and all the obstacles they have to do in order to be ready, deemed ready to be a firefighter, a hero, And so that's kind of, for Alex, we showed up to camp, the kind of pre-training camp, and we knew there was one spot open at camp. We knew there was 20 guys, and one of them was going to get transferred. And so for us, we had some people that were our favorites in terms of how we clicked with, but obviously we had no say in that, and we kind of had to just be a fly on the wall and wait. And you see in the film, Alex really excels in a lot of ways. He's really bright. He's really motivated to get to camp. And so it seemed clear that he was probably a front runner. And we had a first conversation with him and kind of explained the film, and he was very open, and we were really lucky that he was willing to work with us, because if not, it could have been 6 months until another spot opened. So, yeah.
So Jeff, you're obviously on the front line of trying to shape the future lives of young people. You've now had this inside look at, for good or for bad, the program that these young men find themselves in as a part of their transfer on to the next part of their lives. Do you think that this is a beneficial program? Do you think it's something that puts them in a good spot or not? Sorry to throw you a curveball.
That's the question. I'm pausing because it's a question that's been sitting on this project for a long time. And I guess I would answer it this way. One of the things that I think Jake and Drew are really good at is spotting a good story. And I don't just mean like, wow, it'll interest people, which was young men reducing their sentences fighting fires. Jake came up with this. This was his baby originally, and that was a great idea. But then the real work starts to figure out, but what really is the story when you bring in actual human beings? Do I think that it's a good program? If I had just flipped my thumb up and down in 5 seconds, I'd probably say yeah, but it's so complicated because it comes at a price. There's some way in which they're being exploited. And I think for figuring out what the story was, which again is a credit to Jake and Drew, was incredibly difficult for something that might seem so obvious. It was very complicated. I guess what I would say is I think what is good is people paying attention to and realizing that the prison system in the United States is deeply flawed and damages a lot of people, and this is at least part of kind of a current of things that are maybe moving in the right direction. I'll leave it at that. Is that good enough?
Well, whatever you give us is good enough. And if it was an easy question to answer, it probably wouldn't make such a compelling story. So kudos for you for leaving me and other viewers kind of like yourselves in the middle, trying to make up our minds. So Jake, give us an idea of, have you heard from the characters in this movie, their reflections from the film?
Yeah, it's interesting. So we've worked together. Drew and I worked a lot to get the film to the guys in the film so they can see it. We can get it to Pine Grove so they can see it. And there's a lot of groups that we wanted to see this before we released it. And we had checked in with a lot of the guys who were in it. So Chuy has seen it. Chuy and his family have seen the film. Alex and his family have seen the film. Dominic Porter and his family, they've seen the film. Antonio Wellington, his family, they've all seen it. They're all approving. They all like the film and very proud of the family's very proud of their children that have gone through this experience together, and they're right along they're right alongside them and heart and mind as they're dealing with it. And I think the fact that they've received it well and the representation for them feels accurate and worthy is everything to us in that process, right? We can't go really do anything more past that point. We had to really check in and check ourselves because we're not part of that community, right? We came at it from a very different angle and arrived there from a very specific type of perspective as filmmakers and as artists and advocates. But the actual lived experience of that is very far removed from what we deal with.
Well, and I think that's one of the fascinating things for me about this film is, here we are in Ohio. We don't worry about wildfires. Wildfires have obviously been a huge topic for everybody through the last couple of years. And of course, I don't have an idea of what the life for those young men are. So bringing that all together and bringing it to those of us who are privileged not to have to worry about those things was really wonderful to experience. So I thank you for bringing that to our attention. I thank you for being here at the film festival and congratulate you on your future efforts.
Thank you.
So much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.